You know, there's a big problem with cold brew coffee, and most people are making it completely wrong. And if you are one of those people, then this could be the video that saves your entire cold brew experience. So let's talk about it. Now, cold brew is very simple. You just steep ground coffee in cold or room temperature water for an extended period of time. And then you filter the grounds out and that it. Now, the first mistake that people make is actually with the grind size. Now, typically, when you're grinding coffee, you want the grind size to be relatively coarse. The grind size should resemble coarse sand. If it's too fine, it's going to over-extract and become bitter. If it's too coarse, it's going to under-extract and not have enough flavor. And with cold brew, since we're steeping the grounds for such a long period of time, you need to go even coarser than you normally would for drip coffee. So when you're grinding for cold brew, think extra coarse. The second mistake people make is actually with the coffee to water ratio. Now, this is very important because it's going to directly affect the strength and the flavor of your cold brew. Now, generally speaking, you want to use less coffee than you would if you were brewing hot coffee. Since we're steeping for so long, you really only need about 1/3 of the amount of coffee that you would use for drip. I recommend starting off with a 1:15 ratio of coffee to water. For example, if you're using a 12-ounce bag of coffee, you would use 6 ounces of water. Now, you can always adjust this ratio based on your preference. If you like it stronger, you can use less water. If you like it weaker, you can use more water. But whatever you do, just remember that less is more when it comes to cold brew. The third mistake people make is actually with the brewing time. Now, there is no hot and fast rule for how long you should steep your coffee, but I do recommend that you don't go longer than 24 hours. Now, I know some people like to steep their coffee for several days, but this is going to result in an extremely bitter, extremely strong coffee that's not really enjoyable. I recommend brewing your cold brew for no longer than 24 hours. In fact, I recommend starting with a 12-hour steep and then working your way up from there. The fourth mistake people make is actually with the serving temperature. Now, the whole point of cold brew is to serve it cold. And I see so many people making cold brew and then serving it over ice. Now, yes, you can serve it over ice, but the problem with that is that the ice is going to melt and dilute your coffee. Instead, I recommend that you serve your cold brew over a single large ice cube, or better yet, that you serve it in a chilled glass. And the fifth and final mistake people make is actually with the storage of their cold brew. Now, once you've brewed your cold brew, you'll notice that it will start to separate. Now, this is completely normal, and it's not a sign that your cold brew has gone bad. It's simply the water and the alcohol evaporating, which will naturally happen over time. Now, the best way to store your cold brew is actually in the refrigerator. Now, before you store it though, I recommend that you give it a quick stir and then pour it into a container that has a lid. Once it's in the fridge, it's going to last for several weeks. And if you notice that, it starts to separate again. All you have to do is give it another stir before serving. So now you know the 5 biggest mistakes people make with cold brew and how to avoid them. I hope you enjoyed this video, and more importantly, I hope you learned something new. If you did, please leave a like. Also, don't forget to subscribe for more great coffee tips and tutorials. I'll see you next time.